The first thing you should book ahead is flights. Now, flights are a completely different animal. Depending on where you're flying from, flights can be anywhere from a couple $100s all the way up to the thousands. Flights is something you definitely want to make sure to book ahead. Now, for flights, not only flights coming to Hawaii at the very beginning, but also inner island flights. So if you're planning on going inner islands such as to Kauai, Maui, Big Island, any of those different islands, you want to make sure to book the flights ahead. And yes, you can wait till the last minute to book the flights. However, the best times to fly and the cheapest times to fly are typically going to be the very early morning flights and the end of the night flight. For flights as well, something to keep in mind for flight prices is if there's any festival. So for example, the Merry Monarch Festival, if you're planning on island hopping around that time, typically the flights are going to be a lot more limited and it will be more expensive. You want to keep in mind any festivals that are going to be during the time of your Hawaii stay. Second is accommodation. If you're only planning on coming to one island, Oahu is typically going to be the most affordable. There's options from budget all the way up to all the bells and whistles, 4 seasons. However, if you're planning on island hopping, you want to make sure to book your accommodations early so you can lock in the best prices. The same can be said if you're only coming to one island, for example to Oahu, but you're staying in different areas. So if you had a few days in Waikiki, a few days on the west side going to Ko'olina, a few days on the north shore to Turtle Bay, you want to make sure to synchronize that up early and make sure that you book your accommodations with plenty of time in advance. If this is your first time to the island, I would recommend only sticking to 1 or maybe 2 islands at the most, so you're not spending the bulk of your time packing, unpacking, checking in, checking out, going to different hotels, going to different islands. I would definitely recommend limiting it to just 1 island or at most 2 islands. The third to make sure that you book in advance is rental cars. If you traveled to Hawaii in 2021 when we had a huge rental car shortage where something as simple as a compact car was upwards of $300 a day, it can be expensive. Now it is 2023 and a lot of the prices have calmed down quite a bit and have regulated, but you want to make sure to book your rental car early. I'll leave a link in the description box below for an option where you can book rental cars here in Hawaii, whether it's in Waikiki, at the Honolulu airport, or on other neighbor islands. They don't require a deposit. You just plug in the information, the dates that you need, and then you can book a rental car ahead of time. In general, while you can book a rental car a couple days before you need it, the other thing you're going to have to face is if you're looking to get a low-cost car, such as a compact car, typically the lower-cost cars will sell out the fastest, leaving you with a more expensive or luxury option. The other thing to keep in mind is that booking a rental car is free. It doesn't cost anything for most rental car agencies to put in a reservation if they don't ask you to pay ahead of time. If you are able to do that, there's no benefit to waiting. If you think you're coming in 3 or 4 months, you want to make sure to go ahead and book your rental car early so you can get the location you want, specifically if you want Waikiki or if you wanted to book it from the Honolulu airport. Enterprise, for example, there's only a couple locations in Waikiki. Pre-COVID, there was, I would say, upwards of 10 locations. So with less locations, smaller inventory, it can be trickier to get a rental car if you wait till the day before or a few days before. It is always a good idea to book your rental car ahead, especially when there's so many options where you don't have to pre-purchase that rental car. Number 4, another really good thing to make sure that you book ahead is inter-island flights. Now I touched on a little bit of this earlier in the video for flights itself, but inter-island flights, especially if you're booking an inter-island flight to do a tour activity, you want to make sure to book that ahead. So for example, let's say that you decided to stay in Hawaii for a week. You're staying on Oahu for the entire week, but you wanted to do an island hop to, say, Maui, for example. Let's say you wanted to go out on a Wednesday, the very first flight of the day, and you wanted to come back that same evening. So that way you don't have to pay for additional accommodation, you don't have to pack or repack your suitcases, you can just fly out there for the day. Getting an early flight can be tricky, especially in the summertime, and if it's something that you know you want to do, you want to make sure to book that in advance. If you're island hopping for just one day, flights can be as cheap as $30 to $50 if you book in advance at specific times. So if you're planning on island hopping, that's something you definitely want to make sure to book in advance. Same thing for that example that I just mentioned with Maui. If you're planning on getting a rental car, you want to book that in advance as well. Or if you're flying over to another island, specifically for activities, you might want to make sure to book that flight before you book the activity, just to make sure you can lock everything in together. One example of something that other people have done in the past, as well as something we've done here on the channel, is we've flown from Oahu to the Big Island specifically for a helicopter ride on the Big Island to check out the volcano flow. So to do that, we wanted to make sure we had the full day. We booked in advance, we got the first flight of the day over to Big Island and the very last flight of the day leaving Big Island. That gave us the entire day that we could navigate. We were able to go check out Akaka Falls, Rainbow Falls, a few other sightseeing places. We checked out the Volcano National Park, and we had time for our afternoon flight around the active volcano. This is something you want to make sure you don't leave to the last minute, especially if it's a tour activity that is paired with an inter-island flight, as I mentioned before. I'll also leave a link in the description box below if you're curious about our itinerary that we did for the Big Island, where we did the Big Island in an entire day, including a helicopter flight and a few sightseeing points. The fifth is going to be activities and tours. Activities and tours in general, there's no benefit to waiting. If you are able to book in advance, you can get your first choice activities, the first choice dates, first choice times, everything that you want to do. So for activities and tours, this is especially important if you're coming to Oahu in June, July, or August, and if you're booking something that's very, very popular, such as Kualoa Ranch or Jurassic Valley. If you're traveling with a big group, let's say you're 2 to 3 families and total is going to be about 10 to 12 people, and let's say all of you want to do the same tour at the same time. So if you did want to do, for example, the Hollywood movie sites tour at 10 o'clock and you want to be all in the same group, you want to make sure to book that in advance, because while it is possible to book that tour maybe a week or 2 weeks out, you might have to split up as a group. So instead of having all of you in the same tour time, there might be 4 of you at the 9 o'clock, 4 of you at the 10 o'clock, 4 of you at the 12 o'clock. So you're still doing the same tour, but you're split. If this is something that you want to do, there's no benefit to waiting. It makes the most sense to book in advance. Most tour companies do have a cancellation policy, so depending on the tour company, it can be 48 hours, a week, just depending on that specific tour company. So if it's a tour activity that you want to do, especially if you're a larger group, you want to make sure to book that in advance. The sixth thing you want to book ahead is specifically luau's. So luau's are a must-do here on the island, especially if you're a first-time visitor. And luau's can book out weeks in advance, especially if you wanted to book a very, very popular one. I'll leave a link in the description box below for some of my favorites, or if you wanted to do a luau that's a smaller group luau. For example, Experience Nutridge is one of my favorites here on the island, and it only holds 50 to 70 people. Compared to a luau that holds 1,200 people, for example, the smaller luau's will typically book up a lot faster, and because of that, you want to make sure that you book this in advance. The same can be said if you're booking a luau, say in the winter season where it often rains a lot. Sometimes the luau's can cancel. If there is inclement weather, if it rains, anything along those lines, sometimes a luau can cancel, and those guests will have to reschedule for another luau. But if you leave it to the very last minute, you might not even get to do the luau at all if your luau gets rained out. Almost all luau's are completely outdoors, so if there is a thunderstorm, downpour, and a luau is canceled, you want to make sure to book that early in your stay in advance, so that way if you do get canceled or you need to reschedule, you have a few days available versus leaving it for the very last day of your stay. The seventh thing you want to book ahead is spa and wellness treatments. Now, it depends on how you want to do it. Hawaii sun, I think, is probably some of the strongest anywhere in the world. It's aggressive. I've seen some of my friends who fly in from Chicago, from the East Coast, and they'll wear 15 SPF sunscreen, be out in the Hawaii sun for an hour. We're the southernmost state in the United States, and they'll come out looking like a complete lobster. For that reason, if that might be something in your future, I would highly, highly recommend booking your spa appointments early and booking it for the very beginning of your stay. As you stay in Hawaii longer and longer, if your skin is not acclimated or if your skin is not accustomed to this kind of weather, especially with the hot summer sun, if you book your spa appointments later on for, say, the last day of your stay and you've gotten a sunburn, it's not going to be very pleasant for your spa service or massage. If you book, say, an exfoliant treatment, or if you booked a spa massage but you have a huge sunburn all over you, this is something you want to book ahead. And I definitely recommend, if you're doing any spa treatments, try to book it early in the day versus later in the day. If you're getting a massage, you most likely will want to do it early in the day to get it out of the way, and you can have your whole day relaxed, and you wouldn't want to necessarily do the spa like around lunchtime or around a meal time. That way you can completely enjoy your spa appointment. Summertime especially, spas can book up in advance, and by summer again I mean June, July, and August, or even our winter season, December and January. These are things that you want to book in advance, and there's no benefit to waiting. Typically there's no difference in price whether you book a month out or a day out, but if you are only here for a limited amount of time, say a week for example, this is one of the things you definitely want to make sure. If you do want to do a spa appointment, especially if you wanted a couples massage, or if you perhaps wanted to do a couples massage and request an oceanfront room, for example, you definitely want to make sure to book that in advance so you get your first choice date and your first choice time. Eighth is restaurants. Now, you don't have to book every single restaurant for every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but if you have a handful of restaurants that you definitely want to check out, in general, it's free to make restaurant reservations, and I'll leave a link in the description box below for some of my favorites. Some of the more popular ones to book in advance, if you're staying on Maui, for example, is Mama's Fish House. That gets really booked out for dinner. Duke's Waikiki here on Oahu, that typically gets booked out for dinner a few weeks in advance. There isn't a benefit, again, to waiting for dinner itself and deciding the day of. If it's a restaurant you might want to go to or you're interested in going to, especially if you're trying to request a specific time, for example, if you're coming during summer and you want to book your restaurant during sunset, for example, you want to make sure to book those in advance. To book restaurant reservations, it's typically easy to do. If you have a hotel concierge, you can always call into the hotel. You can also call into the restaurant directly. There's also online platforms such as OpenTable where you can do all this for free. Some restaurants do charge a small fee, especially if you're doing a dinner reservation for a popular day, such as Valentine's Day, for example, or Christmas or any other holiday. There might be a cancellation fee where if you don't show up to the reservation, they can charge you $25 or more, or if they have a prefix menu and it's a set reservation time. But in general, outside of those special occasions, restaurant reservations for dinner are free to make, and I would definitely recommend if it's a restaurant on your must-try or must-do list, I would highly recommend booking those in advance. Number 9 is golf tee time. Now, I personally am more of the person who drives the golf cart, but if golf is on your list, I would highly recommend also setting that up in advance, especially if you want to get a early morning tee time. Now, for golf in general, like most places, especially in Hawaii, it's typically more expensive if you do an AM tee time versus a twilight tee time, which is after 2:30 p.m. This would be something that you might want to take into account when you're planning your vacation, what days you want to play golf and what times. Within the Waikiki area, there isn't really any golf course outside of the public golf course, Ally, which is a municipal course, as opposed to a resort course. If you're planning on going for golf, and some of the golf courses will also provide shuttle transportation at a cost, you want to make sure you book in advance, not only for the tee time, but also if you need shuttle service, you want to make sure you can book your space on the shuttle as well. One example of this is on the west side, Ko'olina. They offer a golf course and they also offer shuttle service for an additional fee, but even though the tee time might not be full, the shuttle may be full. Same thing for Hawaii Prince Golf Course, for example, they also offer shuttle service. You want to make sure not only do you get the tee time, but also the shuttle service if you decide that you're not getting your rental car and you're going to use the golf course's shuttle service. Not all golf courses offer shuttle service, but quite a few do, and you want to make sure to book those in advance. And the last thing you want to make sure to book in advance, and by book in advance, I mean make sure you plug it into the vacation grid, is special events and festivals. Now, Waikiki is known for having a lot of special events and festivals, whether that's block parties, block festivals, parades. You want to make sure to plug that into the vacation grid if that's something you definitely want to check out. So for example, if you didn't know that on Saturday that there was a parade that you wanted to check out from 9 a.m. to 12, you book other tours and activities only to find out that you had booked a snorkel tour at the same time as the parade that you think that you and your family would love to check out. Same thing for block festivals and parties. If you wanted to check out a local block festival so you can try local foods and see local arts and crafts, and let's say you find out it's on a Saturday, but you booked your luau the same day because you weren't aware of the festival, looking up different festivals and block parties in advance is great for planning your vacation because it's a great mix of tours, activities, things to do that are free, and local things that you can do here in Waikiki to check out different things outside of the normal tours and activities. I love going to block festivals in Waikiki. Typically they run from 4 p.m. to around 10 p.m. The whole street of Kalakaua gets shut down. There's small vendors if you want to try local food. There is arts and crafts. There's usually some sort of demonstration. Sometimes they'll have music stages depending on the specific festival. I'll leave a link in the description box below. I hope this helped you guys with 10 things that you want to make sure that you plan ahead when you're booking your trip to Hawaii. I've also again left a link for a free vacation planner printable that I made to help you plan your Hawaii vacation. And if you're interested in a custom itinerary, check out the link in the description box below where we can help you plan a custom itinerary for this island of Oahu, as well as Maui, Big Island, or Kauai. And it's not limited to just tours and activities. I'm happy to provide suggestions for restaurants, things to do, ideas, suggestions based on your unique visit. On this one-page planner, you have everything that you need where you can jot down your details for your hotel, rental car, tours and activities, things that you want to do, and a general itinerary.